In this tutorial, we're going to carry on where we left off. We have now set up our site. Okay, we've brought in our topography and we have inserted two links. So our site link, and if we go back to the 3D view, now go to Manage Links. I've also got the civil drawing that I've also included. Remember, the civil drawing was in 3D, and the other site information we brought in only in the view, and we have set it to foreground so it sits above everything in the view. Okay, so in essence, we've got our basic site plan setup and topography. Okay, the next thing we need to start doing is we need to establish a shared coordinate. So I need to establish where this location sits in the real world. So if we go to location, in the location settings, you'll notice that yours might differ to mine, but at the moment it's showing London. So we need to move this to the real world location so that our true north starts working correctly. And all of our sun studies will all be accurate in relation to the location where we're building. So the first thing I'll do is I've given you all a link to a file which you can use to acquire the location from. Okay, so if you go to, it'll be in the Teams folder. So I've linked this Teams folder. So in the Teams folder, the OK300 support files section, and you go to class files, you'll notice that in Green Market Square, I've provided a site location which should open in Google Earth Pro. So if you double click this icon and you've downloaded and installed Google Earth Pro, this point should open up and called the site location. Okay, so we're going to go and get the coordinates from Google Earth. Okay, so these are the exact coordinates. So if I right click on the site location marker and I go to properties, you'll notice it'll give me latitude and longitude. Now before we copy this out, just go and make sure, if you go to properties, tools, options, you want decimal degrees, and make sure that your units are set to meters and kilometers. Okay, so decimal degrees and meters and kilometers. Press apply, press OK. Now, right click on the site location, properties. Now we're going to copy the latitude and longitude. So let's copy the longitude. And if you go back to Revit, we're simply going to put that in, comma, and then copy this. Control C, go back to Revit, Control V. Okay, if I press OK now, if I go back to location, this location should have moved Control V. Let me just do that again. My apologies. This mark should have moved. Control C, Control V, and it's 18, press enter. There we go. So press enter. Now you'll notice that this would have moved to Cape Town. Okay, so you can see it's moved straight to that corner, which is correct. So we've set up our site location. Okay, good. So set up your correct site location. You'll have to do this in the other project file as well, so you can save this somewhere, but that's fine. So here's my internal location, and I'm going to show you exactly how this works and how accurate this is. Now that we've set up our site location, the next point that we need to go and make sure and check is it's still in the Manage tab, is go to Project Information. Now in Project Information, please go and complete all of this information, what you can for the time being. The information that we can't establish for now, we'll establish a bit later. Okay, now, what I have done as well is in the 3D view, I'm going to link in the format information, which we're going to use to help generate our other site context. Okay, so basically what I've done is I've gone and fixed the site location and I've addressed the building heights. But if you want to export the site information, so if I go to VG, my apologies, if we go to Manage and we go to Manage Links, I'm going to unload the civil information for the time being. Okay, unload this information. It'll disappear. Now with my topography, I'm going to go to massing and site, and I'm going to go to view this. So I just want to demonstrate you could add more context and you can export the site contours to a format file where you can actually do some additional work. And I'll show in format quickly how we can link everything together. So I'm going to say launch format with selected Revit objects. I'm going to press OK. This won't take too long. Format should open shortly. So format is opened. Now what's quite interesting is if I switch off the site context or the site contours and I go to my top view, you would notice because I've set up the origin, it's come in exactly correct. So here's our building, and you'll notice that it's even built in some secondary terrain that we can use. But just remember, this is not accurate. That's why we're going to use our site context, and we'll remove this information. And I can remove this aerial photograph if you don't need it as well. So I can remove both that and I can remove the terrain. Okay, and I can double click and delete this image. Now what's nice about this, I can now go and fix my site contextual information that has been built in format. So if I simply go and say import locally, I've made the adjustments myself, and I go to site context. I press open. You'll notice that this will link in my site context on exactly the right location as well. Just note that I have gone and fixed these, and I've also punched a hole where your site will be and where we'll be doing our building. Okay, so the whole purpose of today's tutorial is to show you how to set up your project information and how to use the site context and this Revit file. So you can literally save this as a new model and to make some changes, because in theory, you now have the proper contours. So you could carry on modeling in here to kind of build up the rest of your information. But this is just a workflow to show you how you can export your topography from format into, my apologies, from Revit to format, and using the correct site location, and you'll notice that this comes in at the right orientation. Okay, so now that we've established this link, and you can see that the site contextual information has been fixed to a degree. This might need some tweaking, but in the sense, this information will do for when setting up a project. We've got time to revise this information as the year progresses. Okay, so I'm happy with this result. I'm simply going to close this file now that you understand this workflow and how you can generate the information. Now, I'm going to use this site file I'm going to insert this into my project file as a link. So our building will be in one file and our site will be in another file. So this is going to be our site plan file and site file and context. The other model that you will generate is going to be your building model. And that you want to keep free of other unnecessary information. Okay, so basically all I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and create architecture components. I'm going to create a model in place. This is important if you want to transfer the linked information from this file into another Revit project file. Okay, so I'm just going to go to General. I'm going to make this a generic model, and I'm going to press OK. I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call this context. Okay, so this is a context model. Now I'm simply going to go to Insert, Link CAD, and I'm going to link in my site context model. Okay, so it'll be my format file. So remember, please make sure that you have shared a link to a location where you can access the OK300 support files. That's in the Teams platform. I'm going to go and grab class files, Green Market Square. So I'm going to grab the site context model, and everything remains the same. I'm going to press OK. You'll notice that this information will come in perfectly aligned. So now you notice the file has been linked correctly. Okay, and everything looks, for the sake of this model, this looks quite accurate and correct. Okay, I'm going to finish the model. Okay, fantastic. Now, one last thing, some of you might have noticed that my site was green. So how would I make my site green in this instance? You can select the topography and you can just assign a material in the 3D view. If you don't have this material, click on the 3 dots in this vacant space. And you'll notice if you click home, you're going to have access to a whole lot of different materials. All that I did was I went to the miscellaneous materials. If you scroll down, there's a grass, and I double clicked on grass, and you'll notice that it will add this layer as grass. Okay, I've made some final adjustments. The only thing that I did adjust was in the graphics settings. I adjusted this to be like a green color. Okay, and then if you press OK, you'll find that the grass layer, you can select the right material here, and I've just added that as my grass layer. Okay, all right, so now I've got an in-place model. If you see here, it's a generic in-place model. The reason why we're doing that is so that when we link this file to our project file, that this comes in accurately. Okay, for argument's sake, I am done with my site for the time being. You'll notice that my views are still pretty good, and you'll notice that the contextual information comes in well. So with this site plan, I can change this to color very quickly, and I can also include some shading. So I can do some sun studies, shadow analysis very easily because I have actually gone and set my site to the right location. So manage site location, you'll see that this location has been set. Great. Okay, now we need to start our building project. Okay, so this is going to be a completely new file. So basically what we'll do is we'll save this project file. So we'll save this file, save as. This will be step 2. In my case, just remember this is going to be your site model. Okay, so it's got all the linked information, it's got the site information. Okay, so this is going to be step 2, but in essence, this will be your complete site plan as it stands. So once we've got that, we can simply go to File and we can close. So basically, we're closing everything and we're starting a new project. Now we're going to start a new project. We're going to use our template. So remember, I've linked my BIM library link here, so I've got access to all of this information all the time. Revit, I'm going to go to templates and I'll go to version 23. So I'm starting a new project. So just to recap, one of these is going to be our site file and the other one's going to be our project file. So I'm just starting a new project. Okay, so we can start a new project using their templates. Okay, so we're going to start a new building project. So I'm going to go to the site plan. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to link in the surveyor's drawing that will help me orientate and move everything to the right location. Okay, so I'm going to go to Insert. Remember, you can use your site plan as well. So basically, this is going to be the location of your building project in relation to your survey point, which will be established in your site plan. So I'm going to go to Link CAD, and I'm going to link in the surveyor's drawing in this instance. Remember, you can use your site plan as well. Okay, so I'm going to use the civils drawing in this. I'm going to say current view only. Just remember, I want this only in this view. I'll preserve the colors. This must be a meters drawing. Okay, I'm going to switch that off. I'm going to say internal origin to internal origin. I'm going to press open. Great, and you see the information is coming accurately. So all I need to do now is control what I see from the civils drawing. And remember, because I've linked it by view only, there'll be nothing in the 3D views polluting the rest of my views. Okay. And there won't be anything in the level 0. Just remember, level 0 and the site plan are exactly the same level. Okay, great. And you can see in the site plan view, associated level 0. So you're actually looking at the same information. Okay, now I've inserted this link file, so all I want left is the cadastral information, because that's going to be the most accurate information to line up my site project and my building project. Okay, so I'm going to go to View, Visibility Graphics, and I'm going to go to Imported Categories, and I'm going to switch off all of this information, and I'm just going to leave the cadastral information on. Press Apply, press OK. Good. Now, the reason why I'm using the site view to do this, because you'll notice that my survey point and project base point are visible. If I go to level 0, you'll notice that those points are not visible. You can use level 0, and if you go to Visibility Graphics and you go to Site, just remember, switch off these other categories. So remember to select Architecture and switch off the rest of those other categories. You don't need all that additional information. You're going to go to Site. You can switch on your survey point and project base point to achieve the same result, but stick to the site for this instance. Now, I've got my survey point and project base point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpin the AutoCAD file. I'm going to move this because I'm going to establish my project file for this building to be this point over here. So I'm going to move all this information and move it to this point over here. Okay, then I'm going to repin this. So I can't accidentally move this information. Okay, good. So this is going to be my building's base point now. Remember, our survey point for our site is over here, and the project base point for our site is over here. And this is what we refer to shared coordinates. We're going to establish that now. Okay, great. So now that I've got this point established, the next thing I want to do is I want to link in my Revit project file so I can establish the shared coordinates. Good. So I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to say Link Revit. Now remember, it's going to come with a lot of contextual information. So I'm going to go and say Revit project. My apologies, wrong one. So we're going to go to Class Files. I'm going to go to Green Market Square. And we're going to go Site Setup Model. So I've saved this in the wrong location. Okay, U300 Cape Town, and it's going to be Site Setup 2. I'm going to press Open. Good. Now, you'll notice these points come in at exactly the right location. Now, because this is linked by view only, I'm going to change this to foreground. And you'll notice that I want to move the linked information, this link file, I'm going to move it from that location to where the shared location was supposed to be. So at this endpoint over here. It's pinned. So unpin this object, unpin it, move it, and you'll see it's going to move the whole project. Snap end. Okay, great. Undo, I've moved the wrong object, so I moved the linked object. Move that, move. So just remember, move the correct object, endpoint. Okay, so I've moved the whole information, the site information I've moved. Now in 3D view, what we're going to have is, we're going to have two sets of levels. So one set of levels that belong to the linked object, and then some levels that are linked to this project. Okay, great. Now that I've set this up, and I know now that this is my project's base point over here, which is, so the project base point is the round circle. So if I go to VG and I go to Site, and I switch off my survey point for the time being, press Apply, you'll notice there's my project base point. And it's got a whole lot of information that we'll get to in a minute. So go back to VG, go back to Site, and here I'm going to switch on survey point, press Apply, press OK. And you'll see the triangle, if I tab, that's the survey point. Okay, so the triangle symbol is the survey point, and the round circle is my project base point. Okay, good. So my survey point will need to match the survey point of this project file. The next thing I need to do before I do that is I need to set my true north. Okay, so project north. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the linked object for the time being. I'm going to hide this information, hide element. And I'm going to pick a boundary which is going to become my project north boundary. So I'm going to go to architecture, I'm going to use a reference plane. So I'm going to use this bottom cadastral line and SE to snap endpoints, I'm going to use this bottom cadastral line to be my project north. So I'm going to go to make sure in orientation in your view settings that project north is enabled. I'm going to go to manage and I'm going to go to position. I'm going to say rotate project north. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate, I'm going to maintain text orientation, align, I'm going to select this. Great, press OK. Now, I actually want this to be in a different position, so I'm going to go to position, I'm going to go rotate, I'm going to say clockwise 90 degrees. So I'm happy with the end result. I'm going to go back and I'm going to reset all my site information. So what it's done is it's rotated the link and it's rotated the site information. If you had done this after, if you had linked the Revit file after the rotation, it would not work that well. Okay, so I've set up my project north and I've got my site link in. Great. If I go to 3D view, you'll notice now I've got 3D information in. All I have to do now is move this link file to the right location and start establishing my project base point for my building. So I'm going to go back to site. I'm going to create a section through the building and I'm going to flip this to look at, because I want to see this information over here. Then I'm going to double click on the view. You can also go to the project browser and you can go to sections over here, same thing. Now I'm going to switch off the crop so I can see everything. Now basically you'll see that our building's base point's all the way down here, but our project levels are way above here. So we need to fix that. Okay. So before I go any further, I'm going to fix these levels as well. I'm going to add some more levels. So I'm going to add 3 additional levels above ground and I'm going to add a basement level. So if I go to architecture and I go to levels and I go and simply start adding some levels, you'll notice that this will add some levels on the side here, and you'll notice that every time I drop a level in, it will create a new plan view for it. Now if I grab the levels area and I hold control down and I drag down, now it duplicates the level, but you'll notice that there's no plan view for it or ceiling view. Okay, so we'll need to address that. And you'll notice that the level head is black, whereas the rest are blue. If they're blue, it just means that they've all got levels assigned to them. I'm just going to make some adjustments to get these to the right level. So I'm going to make that 3 meters above ground, make that 3 meters. Good. Make that 3 meters. We can add more later on, but for now, for this exercise, I'm just showing you how this works. So I've set up some basic levels. Now I need to go to VG, Visibility Graphics, Manage, and we go to Site, and I'm going to switch on my, apologies, not Object Styles, you want Visibility Graphics, so View, Visibility Graphics, Site, and you're going to switch on Project Base Point, and you're going to switch on Survey Point, press Apply, press OK. Now you're going to see your survey point and everything there. Great. Now that we've aligned the site up, what we need to adjust now is the actual levels. So I'm going to grab, so that's correct, I've set up my levels correctly. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this site information. Now make sure that it's unpinned again, so select it and you're going to unpin it. And I'm going to move it down. So I'm going to try and establish where my ground level is going to be roughly. So grab this and I'm going to use the move icon. Sorry, it's pinned at the moment, so unpin it, move it. So let's say I want my ground level to be somewhere over there. Remember, I can draft this information. If you take this level a bit through the building, you'll notice that maybe, but you'll see there's quite a big step here. So if I just went and measured this roughly, so modify and measure. So you'll notice that there's a meter step. So we might have to introduce another level, or we might have to get this cut and full level. It doesn't really matter for now. As long as you understand, if I move this information up and down, so I'm moving it up and down, I'm going to establish where my project base point 0 is going to be in relation to the site. Okay, now that I'm kind of happy with the level, I'm going to go to 3D view, And now you're going to see I'm going to have levels up here and I'm going to have levels here. These are levels from the link file, but I'm going to have levels coming up here in this gap. Okay, so this is where our project's going to be, in this gap. Okay, now let's go back to site plan. Now, what I need to do is, and you'll notice that my survey point, so let's just go to VG for this exercise. I'm going to show you, I'm going to adopt the survey point of the link file, and then I'm going to establish a shared coordinate between my site file and my building file. Okay, so go to site, and I'm going to switch off project base point for the time being, press apply. So I've just got my survey points. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to manage, I'm going to go to coordinates, and I'm going to say acquire coordinates. So I'm going to acquire coordinates from the link file. That's fine. GPS system unknown, that's fine. Press close. You would have noticed now that my survey point has disappeared, but if I switch off this link, hide element, you'll notice that the survey point has changed. And the survey point in 3D view, so VG, site settings and survey point, you'll notice that the survey point would have changed and it's in the same location as the survey point of my link file. Now we've established shared coordinates. Okay, so now these two project files share coordinates. So if I go back to site view very quickly, now I'm going to go and say reset. Good. What I can do now is I can go to manage links and I'm going to temporarily hide. So manage links. I'm going to unload the Revit file for the time being. Remember, you can reload it at any point. And I'm going to quickly build a mass object which I'm going to use to link back into the project file. Okay, so I'm going to go to architecture. I'm going to say the massing and site tab. I'm going to say mass in place. I'm just going to call this proposed. Okay, good. Now I'm going to use a series of line work and I'm going to follow the cadastral information. So I'm going to create a model bit of line work, snap end, and I'm snapping on each little point, snap end, SE, snap end, and I'm going to go snap end, and I'm going to simply snap in and close this. Now we're going to have an outline and we're going to use this create mass tool. If I go to 3D view, you would have noticed this created a mass for me. Okay, now I'm going to grab the top face of the mass and I'm going to make sure it aligns with the top view, and I'm going to make sure that this aligns to that face there. So now I've created a mass that goes from the basement to my level 3. Okay, I'm going to finish the mass. Now I'm going to go massing and site, manage. I'm going to go manage links. I'm going to reload. So basically, I've just established a zone in which I can work now. Now remember, I can go and pull this up. So this mass tool is where I can use, you can do this in Format as well, by the way. I'm going to use this extent so that I know that my project fits in within this extent. Okay, I'm happy with the end results. So I'm going to save this. So I've basically set up my project so I can start doing my building design in here. And I've got a section through this. So you can see one last thing that I might do just to make this a bit more relevant is grab the mass. Now that I've completed the mass, I can go mass floors and I'm going to use all the levels in the project to assign floors to these. Just remember, the more levels I add, the more floors it will assign to this. So this is just to kind of help me in the beginning. It'll give me some good information. And in class, I'll show you some more tools that you can use with regards to masses. But I've got my basic building set up. I've got my shared coordinates established. Now I'm going to save this file, save as project. And remember, you're going to save this in that shared location that we've specified that you need to use. Building setup 1. I'm going to save this now. Yes. Okay, so I've set up my building. Now, if you want to link this back into the site project and you want to work on these files separately, you'll need to open up Revit in a new session. You can't use the two files in the same session. So I can't simply go File, Open, Site. I can't do that. I need to start a whole new fresh version of Revit. So I'm going to open that now. So with a new version of Revit set up, and you'll notice that there's two separate versions of Revit running, I'm going to go and open my site setup project. And I'm going to link, so in 3D view, I'm going to link back my other project file in here as well. Okay, so I'm going to go to my building project file. So now we can work on both. So I can establish a basement here, for example. So I'm going to go to Massing and Site. Manage. I'm going to go to, Insert, Link Revit, and I'm going to go to that file that I was working in. Just remember, you can start saving this information here. You can start linking this information here so you get quick access to it. Okay, so that does help. So I'm going to go to Project Files. Okay. I'm going to go to Building. So remember, I'm going to explain how to fix these lots of backups. Okay, so here I'm going to go to Site Setup. I'm going to say by shared coordinates. So by shared coordinates, open. Give it a couple seconds. It is loaded. All that we have to do is if we go to Massing and Site and we go to Show Forms, now you'll notice that it's brought in my building file in exactly the right location. Okay, just remember masses by default are not visible, but as you start modeling information here, the elements will become visible. Now you can see I've got in my site plan, I've got my building coming. Just remember it's not visible at the moment, so just make sure that you show these masses. Okay, so make sure that you show those masses in these views. Okay, all right, so if you go to VG, Visibility Graphics, remember the same tool, and you show your masses and you make them visible, they will be visible in these respective views. Okay, so that's important. Here you can see it's now visible in that view. Okay, so that's where my building is going to be located. So this is showing us that our shared coordinates are working perfectly with each other. Okay, great. Now, for example, if I wanted to create a basement very quickly in the site plan, remember this is the building project. This other view is my site project. So basically what I could do here very quickly, I can establish a basement very quickly in the site plan. Architecture, I'm just going to use a building pad to do this, Massing and Site. I'm going to say building pad, and what's great is because I've got a linked object and I press tab, you'll notice it wants to draw some lines. If I press tab, it will automatically select all those objects, and if I say finish, you'll notice it's created a pad now. Okay, basically all I need to do is I need to match these two levels. So I'm going to go to site plan very quickly. I'm going to draw a quick section through here. This doesn't have to be a perfect section. Go to section and switch off that and that for the time being. Now I'm going to go online. I'm going to link so if I tab, that level with that level. Now you notice it's created a basement for me. So if I quickly create so let me grab this object over here. I grab this object and I go to, it's quite a neat tool that will automatically cut a section box through it. So let's just go to section box, switch this on. Okay, this is a bit, we might have to rotate this, but anyway, for now, I just want to kind of explain how this works. You'll notice that I've managed to establish a basement very quickly into my site topography. Okay, but I'll discuss this in more detail once we start creating more detailed information for your site. Okay, but I'm just showing you the relationship. And if I save this project file, if I save this, and I go back into this project file, and I go to Manage Links, and I go to my site, and I go to Reload. So now I'm working in two files at once. You'll notice that it's established the basement for me. And if I go to my section now, You'll notice now it's established a basement in the site topography at the right level. Okay, so please follow these steps to set up your project, your design project, using the right location and using shared coordinates with your site model. Okay.